Hello everyone, I will speak about a silent way method designed. Remember to pay attention because there are some mistakes. Let's begin by talking about the main objective. Teachers who apply this method want their students to be able to use language for self-expression. In order to do this, they need to develop independence from the teacher to develop their own inner criteria for correctness. Students become independent by relying on themselves. The teacher, therefore, should give them only what they absolutely need to promote their learning. Some other general objectives for this method are to achieve near-native fluency and correct pronunciation in the target language, and to provide learners with oral and oral facility in basic elements of the target language. Let's now talk about the syllabus. This method adopts a structural syllabus with lessons plans around grammatical items and related vocabulary. Therefore, we can say that they are process-oriented. However, Catechnio does not provide details as to the precise selection and arrangement of grammatical and lexical items to be covered. Therefore, we can say that there is no general silent way syllabus. But from observations of silent way applications to basic levels of proficiency, it is clear that language items are introduced according to the grammatical complexity, their relationship to what has been taught previously, and the ease with which items can be presented visually. Typically, the imperative is the initial structure introduced because of the ease with which action verbs may be demonstrated using materials. As regards vocabulary, functional vocabulary is introduced early because of its high utility. Now let's talk about one of the main protagonists of the silent way. Learners have a very active role in this kind of classroom. They are expected to become independent, autonomous, and responsible for their own learning. They should be capable of taking their own decisions as regards language use. Moreover, their awareness of language should be good enough for them to apply this knowledge in different contexts and situations. By doing so, they will prove to have understood and internalized the language. In other words, learners should develop an inner criteria of the language used and self-correctness. Learners should see themselves not as individuals but as a group in order to supply the teacher's absence with the interventions and help from other students. They should be cooperative and competitive so that they can feel comfortable working with their peers. The role they must play, either acting as a teacher or just as a member of the group, will be decided by themselves, taking into account their group needs. Now let's see what is the teacher's role in this methodology. In the silent way classroom, a break in what we are taught the role of the teacher is required. Teachers must change their perception of their own role by giving the learner room to develop as intended. For this to happen, the teacher will teach, test, and get out of the way to give the student place enough to grow. The teacher would act as a neutral observer, taking the student's prior knowledge as a starting point to grow up new content as silently as possible, relying on what they already know. Remaining silent, the teacher will force not only the students to pay attention in order not to miss part of the class, but also its own creativity to look for different strategies to get them understand, such as gestures, mimicry, the use of charts, Cuisenaire roads, etc. When teaching, the teacher will just present the content once and probably using as less verbal support as possible and immediately testing students' comprehension, avoiding correction but promoting self-correction and peer correction. Teachers are also responsible for creating a learning environment in which students feel comfortable taking risks and helping and being helped by others. In Krashen's terms, where the affective filter is up. There are different factors involved in the learning process, and some of these factors are: 1. Teacher-student interaction. Although the teacher remains silent most of the class, it still takes an active role in the classroom by listening attentively to and constantly observing the students' performances. 2. Student-student interaction. It is really encouraged by the teacher since it is in that way that peer correction takes place and also since students can learn from one another. 3. The student's native language. It is not avoided at all. Moreover, it can be used to give instructions when necessary or to give students some help with their pronunciation. Besides, some of the knowledge students possess on their native language can be exploited in the target language by, for instance, finding similarities in its sound system. 4. Students' feelings. As a constant observer, the teacher always pays attention to the students' feelings and tries to help them overcome negative feelings which prevent them from learning. The learning process, as mentioned before, should be given in an enjoyable learning environment. Learners even have opportunities to express how they feel as regards the class, and this is something the teacher takes into consideration when planning the next classes. And 5, last but not least, students' errors. They are seen as a natural and indispensable part of the learning process. Learners are encouraged to work on their own errors in order to improve their language management. We have already mentioned that students are promoted to self-correct, taking into account their developed inner criteria. If a student cannot self-correct, nor their peers can help him, it will be the teacher who corrects him, but just as a last resort. Teachers will take into account the student's error for further work in the needed areas. Okay, people, I hope it was clear. Now let's meet at the chat so that we can discuss it a little bit more. Thank you.